She didn't think twice when she walked away. That's the part men struggle with. But months later, she's back liking your posts, asking innocent questions, acting like the connection still matters. And you're left wondering what changed. Here's the truth. Regret changed. The kind that grows quietly as she compares you to men who don't challenge her, don't inspire her, don't ignite the emotions she felt with you. Now she misses the man she thought she could replace. In this video, I'll show you the 4 signs that prove you're the man she regrets losing. And once you recognize these signs, you'll understand something powerful. You were never the one being tested. She was. There's a reason her return never feels as simple as it looks. Something is happening beneath the surface, an emotional process she'd never confess, a shift she hopes you don't understand. The signs are subtle, but once you recognize them, everything about her timing, tone, and behavior becomes painfully clear. If that makes you curious, like this video and subscribe, because what comes next is the key to decoding the psychological sequence that happens long before she sends that first message. Women don't regret losing a man the moment they walk away. That's the illusion most men fall for. Her regret begins only after something else happens. When the comparison cycle finally completes itself, she steps into a new connection, expecting something better, something softer, something easier. But what she doesn't get is the emotional impact you once created. And that's when the first crack shows up. This regret always begins quietly. Before she ever reaches out, she slips into what I call the silent stage, a period where she watches from a distance. She checks your photos, she replays old messages, she scans your life to see if you're miserable without her or worse, thriving. This is silent regret, and men rarely notice it because women are experts at pretending they've moved on. But then the emotional pattern kicks in. Every woman goes through a cycle, the initial high of freedom, the crash when reality sets in, and the wave of nostalgia that hits when she realizes what she lost was rare. The moment the peak of novelty fades, her mind begins to drift back to the one man who made her feel grounded, challenged, and alive. That's when regret sharpens from a whisper into a sting. Only after enough emotional pressure builds does she shift into active regret. This is where her behavior changes. She reaches out with vague messages that mean nothing on the surface but carry everything underneath. Hey, how have you been? I saw something that reminded me of you. Do you still live near? These aren't coincidences. They're probes. She's checking if the door she closed is still unlocked. A woman doesn't regret losing a man when she leaves. She regrets it when life forces her to see his value in places she expected to find better, and the men she regrets. They share 4 unmistakable traits. Number 1, you elevated her life. There's a very specific kind of man women regret losing, and it's never the one who simply kept her company. It's the man who changed her, the man who didn't just stand beside her but pushed her to grow, to stretch, to rise above the version of herself she was before she met him. And whether she admits it or not, women never truly forget the man who became a catalyst in their evolution. You were that catalyst. You didn't entertain her. You expanded her. Maybe she started taking care of her body differently. Maybe she became more disciplined, more organized, more intentional. Maybe her standards quietly shifted upward. What she tolerated, what she aimed for, what she believed she deserved. Those weren't random improvements, those were reflections of you. This is what I call the improvement echo. The changes she made while being influenced by your presence continue resonating long after the relationship ends. And when she no longer has that energy beside her, the silence becomes painfully loud. Then comes the standard shock, not because you lectured her, not because you told her who to be, but because you embodied a level of focus, conviction, and discipline that forced her to rise. Women don't forget the man who raises their standards. They only realize how high he lifted them when they can no longer reach that level without him. And that realization stings the most when the next man she meets feels ordinary, basic, predictable, safe in the most uninspiring way. That's the moment her mind begins to compare emotionally, not logically. The new guy may be kind, available, even eager, but he doesn't challenge her. He doesn't sharpen her. He doesn't force her to confront her own potential. You did. And psychological studies on cognitive imprinting show this clearly. When someone expands your worldview, your brain cannot unsee it. She can pretend she's moved on, but her internal reference point, the standard of a man, was set by you. And every date she goes on after you becomes a reminder of the gap between what she has now and what she once had without even realizing its value. A woman may forget the man who entertained her. She never forgets the man who expanded her. But elevating her life isn't enough. What truly haunts a woman is when a man gives her safety without ever needing her. And that brings us to the second sign. Number 2, you gave her safety without dependency. Most men think women regret losing the guy who adored them the most, chased them the hardest, or bent the farthest. But that's not how female psychology works. Women regret losing the man who could hold their emotions without collapsing under them, the man who made them feel safe without ever becoming needy, reactive, or insecure. That balance is rare, and you had it. When she cried, vented, spiraled, or acted out of fear, you didn't panic. You didn't fight her emotions with your own. You didn't shut down or get overwhelmed. You stayed steady, present, composed. This is called emotional containment, the ability to withstand someone else's emotional storm without getting swept into it. Most men either shut down because they can't handle intensity or overreact because they take everything personally. You did neither, and that alone separates you from 90% of the men she meets. She remembers the way she could let her guard down around you. She remembers how she didn't need to filter every word or hide her flaws. You gave her a safe space, but you never became her emotional sponge. You didn't carry her chaos. You didn't sacrifice your stability to soothe her insecurity. You simply held your ground, and that grounded her too. But the part that hits her hardest is this. You gave her safety, yet you still had boundaries, unshakable boundaries. You didn't let her disrespect creep in. You didn't allow manipulation to slide. You didn't trade your integrity for intimacy. Women may test limits, but they secretly respect the men who enforce them. Even when they push, even when they resist, something in them admires a man who can look them in the eye and say, "No, that's not happening." And then comes the deepest cut of all. The moment she walked away, and you didn't beg her to stay. You didn't plead. You didn't chase. You didn't fall apart. Your restraint triggered something powerful in her brain, value recalibration. In that instant, she had to reassess the kind of man you truly were. Instead of crumbling, you held your center, and that made her question everything she thought she understood about you. Women don't miss the men who chase. They miss the men who stay centered when everything else falls apart. But emotional safety is only half the equation. What triggers regret even deeper is this. You were never the center of his universe. His purpose was. And that brings us to the third sign. Number 3, you had purpose beyond her. Here's a truth most men don't realize until it's too late. A woman never regrets losing the man who made her his entire world. She regrets losing the man who had a world of his own and simply allowed her to be part of it. That was you. You didn't orbit around her. You didn't rearrange your identity to fit hers. Your life had direction long before she entered it, and it kept its course long after she left. Women are deeply attracted to men with directionality, a clear sense of where they're going and why. Not because of ego, dominance, or bravado, but because purpose signals stability. It shows backbone. It shows that your life has weight, and she felt that whenever she was with you. You didn't abandon your goals for the relationship. You didn't shrink your ambition because she wanted more attention. You didn't dilute your identity to make her feel secure. You kept moving forward, and she respected you for it, even when she didn't say it out loud. But the part she reflects on the most is this. Your life was full with or without her. You had friends, passions, projects, routines, anchors that didn't depend on a relationship to exist. You weren't a man waiting to be completed. You were a man already in motion. When a woman meets a man with value autonomy, value that stands on its own, she feels both drawn and intimidated. It excites her and unsettles her at the same time. And then the breakup happened. Here's where regret takes root. While most men spiral, lose momentum, or cling to what used to be, you didn't. You leveled up, you got sharper, you got focused, you became stronger in ways she didn't expect. She thought your world would collapse without her. Instead, it expanded, and nothing hits a woman harder than realizing the version of you she hoped you'd grow into finally appeared right after she left. That's when regret turns into something deeper, an identity crisis. She has to face the uncomfortable truth that she misjudged you, and someone else might be the one to benefit from the man you are becoming. A man on a mission is the one a woman remembers when the crowd disappears. But purpose alone isn't what imprints on her the deepest, what she can't shake. What stays in her bloodstream long after the relationship ends is the contrast you created in her emotions. And that brings us to the fourth sign, number 4. You created emotional highs in contrast. A woman doesn't become attached to a man because he's always sweet, always present, or always predictable. That kind of man is comfortable but forgettable. What imprints on a woman's mind, what lingers in her memory long after the relationship ends, is the contrast a man creates. The rare balance of warmth and mystery, stability and challenge, closeness and space. You mastered that balance without even trying. Whenever she was with you, she felt alive. Not because you played games, but because your presence wasn't one note. You knew how to shift the emotional temperature at the right moments. When it was time to be tender, you were tender. When it was time to step back, you stepped back. When she challenged you, you didn't crumble. You pushed back just enough to make her engage deeper. This is the kind of dynamic that triggers dopamine spikes, the brain chemistry responsible for excitement, anticipation, and emotional memory. That's why she remembers you more intensely than she remembers men who were nice but dull. You weren't just another chapter. You were a pattern interrupt, a man who stood out because he made her feel something real. She remembers how you didn't say yes to everything, how you didn't validate every opinion just to keep the peace, how you weren't intimidated by her emotions or opinions. You challenged her thinking, not to dominate her, but to sharpen her. Most men try so hard to avoid friction that they flatten the entire emotional landscape. You didn't. Your presence had edges, depth, gravity. And then there's the part she may never admit. You made her work for your attention, not through manipulation, but through discernment. You didn't reward low effort. You didn't give affection on demand. Your attention was earned, not handed out like something disposable. And because she had to invest emotionally to get your presence, her mind assigned you more value. That's how the human brain works. Effort increases attachment. Now she's with someone new, someone safe, predictable, endlessly available, and she feels the difference instantly. There's no spark, no tension, no contrast. Everything is flat, and that emotional flatline makes her memory of you even sharper. Women don't crave constant warmth. They crave a man who makes them feel something real. And when she loses a man like that, her mind begins replaying everything she felt with him. The highs, the depth, the intensity, the contrast. That emotional replay is the bridge that leads her back towards you. Which brings us to what happens next, how women return, and what separates real regret from opportunistic regret. Women don't just wake up one day and return out of nowhere. Their comebacks follow patterns, patterns shaped by regret, comparison, and the fear of making the wrong choice. And if you're the kind of man who elevated her life, gave her emotional safety, lived with purpose, and created real contrast, her return becomes almost predictable. The first pattern is the nostalgia ping. This is the soft, subtle return. The quick message that looks harmless on the surface, but carries weight underneath. Saw something that reminded me of you. Hope you're doing well. Do you still live near? These messages aren't about curiosity. They're emotional sonar. She's checking if the connection is still alive, if you're still open, if she still has access to the man she once underestimated. The second pattern is the comparison crash. This happens when her new relationship or even her dating attempts falls short. She expected someone better, but instead she found someone flatter, weaker, or more predictable. And the moment she feels that emotional gap, her mind snaps back to you. She remembers how she felt in your presence compared to the dullness she feels now. That contrast becomes unbearable, turning regret into urgency. She tries to reconnect, not out of nostalgia, but out of realization. The third pattern is the desperation return. This is the one she hides behind excuses. Suddenly, she just wants closure, or she's been thinking about you lately, or she wants to check in. But underneath all those lines is a quiet fear. The dating market isn't giving her what she thought she could get. Time, options, and reality have humbled her. And now she's circling back to the man she didn't appreciate when he was right in front of her. But here's the part most men fail to see. Not every return is real regret. Real regret shows itself in changed behavior. Consistency, respect, emotional accountability, genuine effort. When she regrets you deeply, she approaches with humility. She treats your boundaries as non-negotiable. She doesn't play games. She doesn't test your patience. She comes back because she sees your value clearly, not because she needs to fill a temporary void. Fake regret, on the other hand, is convenience disguised as emotion. She wants validation. She wants to see if she still has influence. She wants the comfort of knowing you're still available. But there's no growth, no self-awareness, no accountability. And then there's the point of no return, the moment her regret shifts from emotional to existential. It happens when she sees you have evolved into a stronger, sharper, more disciplined version of yourself, and she realizes someone else will eventually benefit from the man she once had. That realization doesn't just sting, it breaks identity, because now she understands she didn't lose a boyfriend. She lost a trajectory. Women regret, man they can't replace. They suffer for the man who outgrew them. And if these signs describe you, then one truth becomes undeniable. You were never the one who lost. A man a woman truly regrets losing is not defined by how much he gave her, how hard he chased, or how deeply he depended on the relationship. He's defined by his discipline, his standards, his emotional steadiness, and the life he continues to build with or without her. When a woman realizes she walked away from a man like that, something shifts inside her, not just emotionally, but psychologically. Because deep down, she knows she didn't lose someone ordinary. She lost someone irreplaceable. If she regrets losing you, it's because you were the upgrade, not the detour. You were the man who expanded her world, grounded her emotions, held your mission with clarity, and created experiences that left a permanent imprint. Regret doesn't come from love alone. It comes from recognizing too late that what she had was rare. But here's what I want you to remember. Regret is not your validation. Her coming back is not your reward. And her confusion is not your closure. Your value is not proven by who returns. It's proven by who you become once they're gone. Don't go back because you feel sorry for her. Don't dim yourself to make the past feel familiar again. And don't step backward into a story that already taught you what you needed to learn. Your life is moving forward. Your standards are rising. Your presence is sharpening. And trust me, women feel that shift long before you notice it yourself. If you're ready to understand women at the level most men never reach, subscribe. If this message hit home, like the video, drop a comment and share it with a man who needs to wake up to his own value. You're not here to chase validation. You're here to reclaim your power.